So, you need wood for roofing, doors, tables, chairs, or perhaps some fancy wooden flooring and you buy from any market. Oh, nice. But hold on, ma. Do you know where all that wood comes from? Every day in Ghana, illegal logging goes on in our forests. Lots and lots of timber trees are illegally chopped down and transported to the markets, devastating our once rich forest.
But hey, that's not our problem. Is it?
Well, if we continue like this, there would not be any forest left, and without these forests, we don't have clean air and all the benefits we derive from the forest. Good agricultural yields like cocoa will decline drastically and our water sources are also jeopardized. But at NDF, we think a good way to choose your wood is from the www.ghanatimbermarket.com. Every wood sold on this site is legal and comes from well-managed forest. Communities around the forest receive benefits from the harvesting of timber. This helps the communities to thrive, to keep protecting our forest for future generations. So, whenever you need wood, buy legal wood. Buy from the www.ghanatimbermarket.com or download the Timber Market app.
Historically, timber companies have gone to communities and have benefited through various forms. Companies have had to provide some kind of benefit to the communities. In 1998, government made it mandatory for companies to provide 5% of their stumpage of total volume of timber which is removed from the community. That is provided to the community in the form of development projects, so that it's no longer at the discretion of companies to decide whether they want to give and what they want to give. Whereas in the past it was sort of voluntary, this time it has become mandatory.
The project is receiving funded from UK Aid under their Forest Governance, Markets and Climate Program.
FGMC project is about building capacities of small and medium forest enterprises in Ghana and Liberia to trade in legal timber. This project was started in July 2018, which will be ending in March 2021. We have implementing project partners in Ghana and Liberia. In Ghana, we have Nature and Development Foundation, NDF, and Kumasi Wood Clusters, KWC. And in Liberia, we have Liberia Timber Association, that's LIPTA, and Liberia Chainsaw Timber and Dealers Union, Lexadon.
The forests of Ghana are owned by the communities, and government is responsible for sustainable management of the resource. We realized that the forest fringe communities were not getting any direct benefit from the timber harvesting. We have what we call stumpage, that is the money timber contractors pay for the exploitation of the timber. The stumpage is shared with nothing going to the communities who live close to these forests. There were agitations from many of those communities whenever timber exploitation took place. Sometimes they would block roads, hijack the contractor to pay huge amounts of money before they could work. So in order to rationalize the whole environment, we decided to enact a law which will formally offer benefits to these forest fringe communities.
SRA is Social Responsibility Agreement. It's a concept that the Forestry Commission came up with, and that was designed to help communities where the forest reserves are located.
Forester, contractor, and now SRA.
Yes, we are dear. October 20 years ubi to be
For example, if I go to a particular area, right now I'm at a Sinapam Forest Reserve, I have to sign a social responsibility agreement with the community. And that means I am going to give them a certain amount of money.
The SRA is different from royalties. Reason backing the SRA is that most of the times these royalties, by the time they even get to the communities, time is far elapsed. Ordinary community member rarely sees the importance of the forest in their community. But the purpose of the SRA is to let the community members have a feel of the importance the forest in their community is bringing to them. So the SRA is supposed to be used for something that every member of the community can benefit from.
This concept was piloted in 1998, which was legally accepted in 2004.
Since SRA implementation became mandatory, different companies, perhaps due to different understanding of how it should work, have implemented it their own way. So there were some challenges. One of the criteria is that communities should be within 5-kilometer radius of the area of operation. You have forests that stretch 20-30 kilometers. What is 5 kilometers? So its implementation became a bit of a challenge. You have companies going to certain communities and they say, well, we've already signed an agreement with this community and therefore you, this community, don't deserve anything. So we've had to engage companies to do it right. So this project has sort of reintroduced the companies to the concept. We have laid out the tenets of what a good social responsibility agreement is.
One of the things we've done is to create awareness among them and train them on awareness of their rights and responsibilities as communities, awareness of the rights and responsibilities of other forest stakeholders like timber companies, like the law enforcers such as Forestry Commission, their roles and responsibilities in the SRA implementation.
What they do is to sponsor and build capacity, especially of forest range communities, and sometimes even our own staff who are not adequately knowledgeable in SRA.
We took it upon ourselves as part of the project implementation to coaching the companies how to properly implement SRAs and not just go to the community, pay money to somebody that cannot be accounted for.
KWC and NDF, omuna mbechire awo eho enimdie na yesusu yede egusu ayeya eboa wo ya hashin.
KWC ombechire ye kwan abefa so a SRS no ya betumi dia yede adijuma ade aboa community no ama community na yede afa na tuma pa yede afra.
If you take the SRA document, we have the code of conduct and then we have the social responsibility aspect.
The code of conduct stipulates relationship between the contractor and the communities in the contractor's workings. The contractor may not work on taboo days. The contractor is supposed to employ a certain number of the local people as staff. The social obligations is the 5% aspect. So in addition to the payment of the money, the contractor must respect the people and forge close relationships with the communities.
Before a permit holder can start actual operation, the permit holder must have completed the signing of the SRA and probably the implementation of it.
Forestry will calculate the 5%. So for example, if it comes to 4,000, I'm supposed to come up with that 4,000 before I even start operation. So I have to go back to the Forestry Commission with that signed agreement with my receipt to prove that I have actually paid.
Whether the communities are aware or not, the timber companies have to fulfill the SRA, and the evidence must be available within the Ghana Wood Tracking System. Otherwise, the Ghana Wood Tracking System will raise red flags that this company has not fulfilled. And when the red flags are raised, it means that you cannot get a flag license for your timber that you have harvested.
We have now gone ahead to establish what we call local SRA committees. We've gone ahead to stipulate that there should be opening of bank accounts for the lodgement of the money. There should be a work plan governing the use of the money. There should be proper monitoring, which should be reported on by especially the Forestry Commission. And then we've also gone ahead to ensure that enough awareness is created. So since we institutionalized these measures, there has been tremendous improvement in SRA implementation.
Menen me man for no ya sign SRA bida
Yeah, Sanofi rap company.
The buyer no mom me anti say teacher for na any Fred bi ase ba no. And am so mu never bit nti omoma nti e basa nkora no mo no mta nko school.
Yeah, say you be see baby a teacher for no obatena no wani akọ e mo fra so.
Nti oma anya physical cash. The share the bi ase ne to building materials in ma o.
SRA no me share share no ma ye be twice Goja bridge me ko hoko ye adwuma ma eden amomo e na recently susu me ye weighing center awo hian ngwashi amomo
ye gina Goja bridge ka ni ha ka na nkola ntimi ye de enko school
kane no ke bi edu saa season say kura na ye ntimi mafu efi say bedu ha na nsuo no ayiri a obi antimi nko ema se na wotwemie no obosumi obi atifie na nse omu be ye ensu ntikwan no ema omu twa so mae ka timi be fa ye niema e de ko ema ye ho haaye bi
mi ko wo yin na me ko ne mem na nyame aye ya dom atu abu nsem na abu nso ba ba gi ya wa ha ka ta me ye nko ba bia biom ama ye mba na nafo ye begigi wo ma ye begigi wo mo ha sesi ya bia na ka me ko na ka sika kra ye me den abu abetwa ageme
me no mu hia eye ya osama infante ele ho no o je se o mo pe ka kwan
na ekwan ne ye ho the first no say ye tikoko a ye difa nsueni opi ho a wo kwa na ehye na akomuntu nyame ambo a koko no nyina beko wo nipa na so obeka nsueni no
na amajewa timbers in fact wa boy em bebrain efi ya sama ekofante na ekwan da ho na me adom wa ma katapira be yi kwan no ho amaye afi ufi don kokurum ekobisidu asenso a wa ma ya be yi ho kwan no so de amaye afi oboae oma no brain plastic chairs makuma aduonu a ye de ye oma no empuntujuma
ekwan no ifaso a ede abre womo ne sesi ano omo nso akoko infa encrosso river plan bio ise de kia ne cars ne bebele ko de ubo mo de ba first na se opinfo kokko wa de de to hwibarim na omo twi ne ba ene de ekwan beda ho no sa nyom ni na asa de etwa.
I have so far signed this SRA with 4 communities, and all these communities are within the Achim-Oda Forestry District.
In Sota, ka entumi eden emba. Nti emba no kura ekwo ibia ombe ka echiri. Nti eno nti ye si hia se sika omude aboa ye de bi eye bridge no.
Falcon Ridge SRA or the breye ye de bito roofing sheets e de kobo emba ne mema eja na bia so. No na ye the background ye guso a ye cast concrete na ye wie. Nti sika corona bi nso ye de bi koto cement no to a dumedie no so na emom de ye wie akakakra asa ye tumi awie.
Bi o ho a ye ba kru mu na pipe a omu yusu no kru no ni nyina ase eti yen sare na de mema omu eno no mo de ye pipe no ma community ni nsu
SRA impo afap some say 5% no be chira mam say me ye no mitimi ye ma no bro so a say community nyina ade ho adanse
community ni nya bibia enya SRA ne nkokra say otimi boa omu ne kwa say onkwa benefit say de o pe matu nsu a ho ama omu eno na nka SRA kra ho matu ama omu a me dan a me sisi wo me de dan na ma hospital for I see omu team.
In 2017, our records we collected from the FSD shows that about 299 communities received almost 790,000 Ghana cedis as SRA. And it's been impressive for some communities. They have shown us evidence of what they've used those monies for in terms of projects. And those that have not shown any evidence of what they've done with the money are beginning to realize that the money is not for those who are collecting as individuals. And then they become palpable and you have to hold them responsible as to what they've done with the money.
How are you nyane se kokko asimia na abanya kan amayen. Se 300 na obenya obeba no ye twem be 50 apapa ye for paiko. But when ya kan so the amaya calculate ya kan usika o de ma ban no yi 5% no e de ama community no obeba na duane ni ho. Aban so ma ya kwan ma ye repressing o se ne wo atwa no ahye nti ye de against wo contractor no.
SRA ndi se da e kan se dia pagya bi de na chize boa na mo esa
yesa kan no en somnia ye hwehwe niti wama nyama nyina yesusu nyina akofo.
The communities think that the amount that is being paid as SRA is very small for them. We have made them to be aware that every tree has its value. Where we have valuable trees like Odum, Sapele and the rest, when they come to do SRA, you see that the amount will be so high. We have always been telling them, as we protect the forest and stop illegal activities, Because when they also come, they look for the better species to remove. So if we are able to protect the forest very well, and those valuable trees are there, then it will make the SRA to also go up.
I have a very good working relationship with the communities. So if someone tries to enter a place where I work illegally, somebody from there will call me, and I will call the forestry people immediately for them to go and apprehend the person, because they know me, they have my phone number, and they are the ones who protect it for me.
Forest no ye bo ho ban se ne be ya obi eden emfi ba bi emewurim ana ije bi kra tuma ye be hwe ya se ye be dum no amama entuma enhye
ye hwe se ye ma operators no emba mebubudua na basabasa nti bibia ye bi hu omo no ye draw na attention say media say na ekoso ono so watu anamondo aba abehwe.
We are happy at NDF to see that our efforts are yielding results.
When the CSOs started coming in, more or less as arbiters, we've seen a complete change in the field, where engagement is now better. We no longer get roadblocks as we had in the past.
I think it has benefited the community a lot.
Community no first nanka omo haya ben pa. SRA ni ba mu no ye ma omo enkyekere mo hu se mo de amudi ene SRA ti me de me pese entra ho na yenya sumbi.
Companies are complying now without having to be pushed to actually fulfill SRA.
And it will also interest you to know that other than SRA, development that would have taken long to reach certain communities, through SRA, the communities are receiving those developments now. So SRA is actually helping the social and economic development of the local communities.
The appeal I have to communities is that, yes, I mean, everybody's happy getting the money from the companies, but in the same way, it's rights and responsibilities. And therefore, whatever communities expect from companies, we expect the community also to provide that service which companies expect from them. I believe that if this is done, then together we'll have a perpetual engagement for the benefit of the communities, for the companies, and then for the people in general.
We expect the government to come in and improve the system. The illegal materials that are removed get onto the market and tends to underprice the material, and therefore legal material become more expensive, and people do not want to patronize the legal material. If the assumption that government consumes a lot of timber in their developmental projects is true, then we would expect that the government would also ensure that in all its projects, legal timber are used so that the demand for the illegal timber would definitely go down, and therefore there will be no motivation for the illegal operators also to continue plundering the resource.
So, you need wood for roofing, doors, tables, chairs, or perhaps some fancy wooden flooring, and you buy from any market. Oh, nice. But hold on, ma. Do you know where all that wood comes from? Every day in Ghana, illegal logging goes on in our forests. Lots and lots of timber trees are illegally chopped down and transported to the markets, devastating our once rich forest.
But hey, that's not our problem. Is it?
Well, if we continue like this, there would not be any forest left, and without these forests, we don't have clean air and all the benefits we derive from the forest. Good agricultural yields like cocoa will decline drastically, and our water sources are also jeopardized. But at NDF, we think a good way to choose your wood is from the www.ghanatimbermarket.com. Every wood sold on this site is legal and comes from well-managed forest. Communities around the forest receive benefits from the harvesting of timber. This helps the communities to thrive, to keep protecting our forest for future generations. So, whenever you need wood, buy legal wood. Buy from the www.ghanatimbermarket.com or download the Timber Market app.
Historically, timber companies have gone to communities and have benefited through various forms. Companies have had to provide some kind of benefit to the communities. In 1998, government made it mandatory for companies to provide 5% of their stumpage of total volume of timber which is removed from the community. That is provided to the community in the form of development projects, so that it's no longer at the discretion of companies to decide whether they want to give and what they want to give. Whereas in the past it was sort of voluntary, this time it has become mandatory.
The project is receiving funded from UK Aid under their Forest Governance Market and Climate Program.
FGMC project is about building capacities of small and medium forest enterprises in Ghana and Liberia to trade in legal timber. This project was started in July 2018, which will be ending in March 2021. We have implementing project partners in Ghana and Liberia. In Ghana, we have Nature and Development Foundation, NDF, and Kumasi Wood Clusters, KWC. And in Liberia, we have Liberia Timber Association, that's LIPTA, and Liberia Chainsaw Timber and Dealers Union, Lexadon.
The forests of Ghana are owned by the communities, and government is responsible for sustainable management of the resource. We realized that the forest fringe communities were not getting any direct benefit from the timber harvesting. We have what we call stumpage, that is the money timber contractors pay for the exploitation of the timber. The stumpage is shared with nothing going to the communities who live close to these forests. There were agitations from many of those communities whenever timber exploitation took place. Sometimes they would block roads, hijack the contractor to pay huge amounts of money before they could work. So in order to rationalize the whole environment, we decided to enact a law which will formally offer benefits to these forest fringe communities.
SRA is Social Responsibility Agreement. It's a concept that the Forestry Commission came up with, and that was designed to help communities where the forest reserves are located.
Forester, contractor yi mo djuma no na mo tanya SRA no.
Yes, we are there October 20 years ubi bitu be hu. Onfa nya there ena atwemu a obi entumi hu.
For example, if I go to a particular area, right now I'm at a Sinapam Forest Reserve, I have to sign a social responsibility agreement with the community. And that means I am going to give them a certain amount of money.
The SRA is different from royalties. Reason backing the SRA is that most of the times these royalties, by the time they even get to the communities, time is far elapsed. Ordinary community member rarely sees the importance of the forest in their community. But the purpose of the SRA is to let the community members have a feel of the importance the forest in their community is bringing to them. So the SRA is supposed to be used for something that every member of the community can benefit from.
This concept was piloted in 1998, which was legally accepted in 2004.
Since SRA implementation became mandatory, different companies, perhaps due to different understanding of how it should work, have implemented it their own way. So there were some challenges. One of the criteria is that communities should be within 5-kilometer radius of the area of operation. You have forests that stretch 20-30 kilometers. What is 5 kilometers? So its implementation became a bit of a challenge. You have companies going to certain communities and they say, well, we've already signed an agreement with this community and therefore you, this community, don't deserve anything. So we've had to engage companies to do it right. So this project has sort of reintroduced the companies to the concept. We have laid out the tenets of what a good social responsibility agreement is.
One of the things we've done is to create awareness among them and train them on awareness of their rights and responsibilities as communities, awareness of the rights and responsibilities of other forest stakeholders like timber companies, like the law enforcers such as Forestry Commission, their roles and responsibilities in the SRA implementation.
What they do is to sponsor and build capacity, especially of forest fringe communities, and sometimes even our own staff who are not adequately knowledgeable in SRA.
We took it upon ourselves as part of the project implementation
to coaching the companies how to properly implement SREs and not just go to the community, pay money to somebody that cannot be accounted for.
KWC and NDF, omo mbe chire awo eho animdie na yesusu ye de egusu aye ya eboa ye wo ya hase no.
KWC omo be chire ye kwan ya befa so a SRS no ya betumi de aye den adijuma ade aboa community no ama community na aye de afa na tuma pa aye den afra.
If you take the SRA document, we have the code of conduct and then we have the social responsibility aspect.
The code of conduct stipulates relationship between the contractor and the communities in the contractor's workings. The contractor may not work on taboo days. The contractor is supposed to employ a certain number of the local people as staff. The social obligations is the 5% aspect. So in addition to the payment of the money, the contractor must respect the people and forge close relationships with the communities.
Before a permit holder can start actual operation, the permit holder must have completed the signing of the SRA and probably the implementation of it.
Forestry will calculate the 5%. So for example, if it comes to 4,000, I'm supposed to come up with that 4,000 before I even start operation. So I have to go back to the Forestry Commission with that signed agreement with my receipt to prove that I have actually paid.
Whether the communities are aware or not, the timber companies have to fulfill the SRA, and the evidence must be available within the Ghana Wood Tracking System. Otherwise, the Ghana Wood Tracking System will raise red flags that this company has not fulfilled. And when the red flags are raised, it means that you cannot get a flag license for your timber that you have harvested.
We have now gone ahead to establish what we call local SRA committees. We've gone ahead to stipulate that there should be opening of bank accounts for the lodgement of the money. There should be a work plan governing the use of the money. There should be proper monitoring, which should be reported on by especially the Forestry Commission. And then we've also gone ahead to ensure that enough awareness is created. So since we institutionalized these measures, there has been tremendous improvement in SRA implementation.
Me man for no ya sign SRA bida. Ya sign fi rap company.
E ba no omo mia ti asese. Teacher for na ya ne Fred bi aseba no. Enam so mu ni ba bitinti omo ma. Nti e ba sa nkora no mo no mta nko school.
Te ye say ye besi baby a teacher for no obatena. Ne wani akọ e mo fra no so.
Nti omo anya physical cash. The share the bias in to building materials in my own.
SRA no me share ahye no ma ye be twice Goja bridge me ko hoko ye adwuma eden amomo e na recently susu me ye weighing center awo hian ngwasi amomo
yagina
go. Snack break is very necessary. You know, when people start here for quite some time, they need to be energized again. So we want to do a presentation on the policy implications of this new regulation. But before we do that, let me acknowledge, because in the beginning, we did a little bit of institutional introduction. We just acknowledge people who were here at the time from different institutions. We know new people have joined us. So Dr. Junfo is here from the World Bank, right? Thank you so much. And then we have Magdalene also from FCDO. FCDO is the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, the former DFID, right? All right. So thank you guys. Thank you so much. Oh, Dr. Asai is also here. Yes, thank you. So Dara will give us that presentation. Please. He's going to give us fire. Please, let's welcome him.
Okay, thank you, Council Mustafa. Sorry, there's no fire on the mountain here. All right, so I think we have listened to the very elaborate position of the law regarding the new regulation, LI2462. But I think it's also important that we take a look at what is the policy basis that formed this LI, if any. So I'm just going to touch on all of these policies And you can see that there's quite things that we have to try and see. Yeah. Okay, thank you. And then I will also then touch on, aside our own policies, how does this LI also align with some of our international commitments, do some conclusions. And I think you have already had a chance to look at some of the forest reserves that are currently under mining, leases, and applications. I think this section on the contribution of forests to our economy, yes, I will leave it to Mr. The forestry, the sector representative to come and industry representative to really do some justice to it. But I think this is not lost on all Ghanaians as to the real economic benefit of our forest resources, ecosystems, and habitat to our socioeconomic development. And I think this issue was mentioned already. The fact that Ghana has got two main forest reserves by administrative categorization, and that is production forest reserve. And you will note that if you go into our documentation, our policy documents, we have about 80% of our forest reserves classified as production forest reserves, and just about 20% considered protected forest reserves. And this you see in the Forest and Wildlife Policy of Ghana 2012, which sets out to look at managing and enhancing the ecological integrity of forests, savanna, wetlands, and other ecosystems. So our Forest and Wildlife Policy is very, very clear on what is considered protected forest reserves and what is considered production forest reserves. Now, if you look across the country also, our forest reserves are distributed across almost all the ecological zones in the country. We have over 280 forest reserves across the country, and just about a few areas considered national parks or wildlife sanctuaries or nature reserves. And you can see, if you look at the map, Ghana really has got quite a good distribution of forest reserves in almost all the ecological areas. And of all the forest reserves, we have about 216 located within the high forest zone. Now, but what does the Forest and Wildlife Policy say? There are clear strategic directions within that Forest and Wildlife Policy. And one of the key ones, which is Direction 1, talks about manage forest reserves in line with national policies and legislation, as well as international treaties that the country has ratified. So all matters in relation to forest reserves, there is no way you can take any action without taking cognizance of both the existing legislation and also international obligations that we have as a country. And significantly, it says sustainable forest management will maintain the health of the forest to produce economically viable harvests, provide social and environmental benefits for now and the future. So this discussion we are having is not just about the now and what people are doing with our forests now. It's also about the implication of every action that will have impact on the state and health of our forests for the future generation as well. Now let's take note of these key policy strategies, 1.1.1. So all of these you find in our Forest and Wildlife Policy of 2012. And key ones that you need to take note of, particularly C, says that we will as much as possible reduce as much as possible the prospecting and mining of mineral resources in gazetted forest reserves. It does not say progressively increase. It says what? Reduce in gazetted forest reserves. Now we have over 280 forest reserves. I know some of them have been lost on the radar. Some are recovering. So many of them are in various stages. It doesn't say anything about mining, even in the degraded areas. It says for as long as they are gazetted, we will take steps to reduce them. Then let's come to another critical policy document. So aside the Forest and Wildlife Policy of 2012, there's also the Ghana Forestry Development Master Plan, which actually provides step or year-long or framework, result-based framework as to the way and manner in which forest reserves in this country are to be managed in line with our legislation and international obligations. So first of all, it says what? Strengthen the legal framework to give permanency to gazetted forest reserves and protected in order to conserve representative samples. So it's not about the fact that we have too many forest reserves. And if you take a critical look and go into the ecological integrity of most of these forest reserves, they are set up for various reasons and to protect certain representative samples of species across the country, both in the high forest zone and also in the savanna ecozones. Then it also says that in C, reduce as much as possible the prospecting and mining of mineral resources in gazetted forest reserves. So already in two major policy documents, there is clear obligation on all of us. Even though you can say a policy does not create a legal obligation, it's actually a trust obligation. And this is decided in consultation with stakeholders across the country before these policies documents are produced. So, and it's very clear, you can't mince those words. Again, we have strategic actions, which also talks about, amongst others, reduce prospecting and mining of mineral resources in gazetted forests by 60% in 2020 and by 100% in 2035. So how do you think we are progressing? I leave that to you. Now, this is also what really informed the 1997 decision to actually limit mining in forest reserves to just about 2% of all the production forest reserves across the country. And with the whole game to get to a point where by 2035, we have 100% no mining in any of our forest reserves. Now, let's look at the result framework of the master plan. This is very, very crucial. The baseline that we had at the time this master plan was being developed was that 5 companies with permit to prospect in minerals in the reserves. And the short-term goal from 2016 to 2020, also the period where we can say that the guideline for mining in environmental in production forest was in effect, would be what? No new permits to be issued to mining companies. I'm sure if you go back and try to ask yourself, how many permits were issued since then, they'll be uncountable. We clearly did not work with our own policies. Medium-term results, no new permits to be issued to mining companies. Long-term result, by 2036, no new permits to be issued to mining companies. And by the end of the program, all prospecting and mining of minerals in forest reserves will cease. I'm just bringing back some of our own policies. I know right now what we have to contend with is the legal provisions. But these policies are also very, very crucial. And it creates the opportunity for us to say, how then did these policies notwithstanding, how did we come by the current legislation or the regulation as we have? Now, if you read further in the same master plan, component 2 talks about reversing deforestation rates and also increasing national cover. We won't talk about how much more forests we have created or how many more forests we have created. And then another very crucial policy to look at, and this is even within the minerals and mining policy of Ghana of 2026. It talks about standards, it talks about guidelines for mining companies on compliance, and the fact that we need to make sure that these things are done in a way that are internationally acceptable. And then the same minerals and mining policy talks about how the mining policies, the mining leases, the mining contracts we are signing must align with our commitment to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. The mining industry remains strongly committed to addressing the urgent need to reduce greenhouse gases significantly by 2020. So you ask yourself, where were these policies when this new legislation was being prepared or drafted. And mining will be carried out in an ambitious and transparent manner in accordance with the UNFCCC, complemented by actions addressed through other relevant fora. And then we also have some clear regulations or some clear policy directions on how land should be utilized. Land choices present several challenges. And then they said, in the case of forest reserves, the Forestry Commission must explicitly waive any restrictions to entry before any mining activity can take place. Government will continuously examine land use options and make use of and make choices between mining and other land use forms. So we all recognize that there are conflicting interests in the use of our lands. Our land spaces are for water protection, for food security purposes, growing food, and all of that. Also serve as habitat for several species across the country. So before you even consider putting any piece of land under mining, you need to really take all of this into consideration. This is a minerals and mining policy. Now, you need to look at this against the environmental protection law, which has now been passed by the EP, and how these two either work together or otherwise. There's also the land policy that we need to look at, that the principle that whoever takes land for mining and timber operation should restore the same to the state it was before the operation. I think this issue has to do with the principle of polluter pay, which has from time to time been a clarion call for all policymakers to include, even in looking at minerals and mining concession allocations across the country and how these areas can be restored. There's also the need to enhancing land capability and land, it says, to ensure the conservation of environmental quality, and no land with a primary forest will be cleared for the purpose of establishing a forest or tree crop plantation or mining activity. So the land policy is clear. A land that is set up as a forest reserve will not and should not be converted. Then we come to the National Climate Change Policy. I think there was a question about our emissions reductions and how it relates. It all falls in these areas, focusing on increasing carbon sinks, and which ecosystems are really responsible for increasing carbon sinks? Our forest reserves. So if you are targeting these same forest reserves for mining, then definitely you are in for big trouble. You might as well forget about any agreement that you have signed. And the main principle is that we recognize the role of natural ecosystems as an important emission source and its potential for carbon capture and storage. Now we are going directly after the same sinks that we claim is going to contribute to our emissions reductions. There's also the talk about the areas, improved management and resilience of terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems. I think there has always been the discussion and the position by policymakers and people in government that, well, a forest reserve can be mined and restored. We all know how that statement can never be true in all its sense, in terms of the ecological integrity of it. Once you touch a forest reserve, you are actually touching the resilience components of that forest reserve. Our environment is not as it used to be before. When you clear the land and you grow crops, it grows within a short time. Now you have to take much longer time. And we know in Ghana, I don't know of any forest reserve that has been cleared and has been successfully restored to what it used to be before. Or we should just agree, like they always say, mining is an inevitable evil. We have to do it in any case. Now, I think all of you know about Ghana's surplus strategy and some of the landscapes that it is operating. And we identify mining inside forest reserves as key drivers of deforestation and forest degradation. So how are we as a country going to continuously claim to be interested in benefiting from emissions reduction market mechanisms if we are going to allow our forest reserves, which are also very crucial for this purpose, to come under mining? And I think this issue has come up, how the EPA and the work of the Forestry Commission must be speaking the same language, must be aligned in the same, towards the same goal. Then, aside the climate change policy, we also have the Ghana's National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan, which says that when the forest was adopted, a number of policies, reforms, and all of that were also enacted. But let's go deliberate to some key issues. It talks about address the underlying causes of biodiversity loss, mainstreaming biodiversity across government and society. And then it also talks about the need to maintain, enhance programs that support the preservation of natural habitats. Our forests present, not plantations, please. Our forests present some of these core natural habitats that are worth securing for biodiversity conservation. And particularly for some forests, some types of forest reserves, I think I'll come to that shortly. I'll show you why there was a specific mention and targeting of GSBAs, and whether we ask ourselves, is that really needed now? Also talks about component 2 of the same policy, talks about improve the status of biodiversity by safeguarding ecosystems, species, and genetic diversity. I don't think, I'm sure you all agree that these things are just nicely written, but as to whether we are really taking any actions to achieve them, it will be another nicely written implementation plan. But as to whether we are going to see the activities really done, that is a matter for the gods. And then we also have the National Biodiversity Policy. So this one is actually the latest one. I think it's still in draft, has not been finalized, just 2022. It was a document that really was taken to Montreal for the engagement of the biodiversity framework. And it says, Ghana affirms the following 12, there are guiding principles they talk about, but one of them is biodiversity offsetting, preventive approach to mitigate the impacts of logging, infrastructure development, and surface mining. It says preventive approach. There is no way directly targeting forest reserves for mining can be a preventive approach. Or, I believe that the way this policy has been drafted, well, maybe we say they are lucky that it's still in a draft, but not lucky for us. It's possible they could even change this biodiversity policy to align with the new law if we don't take action early enough. Anything can happen. Now, there's also the objective, reducing threats to biodiversity, support the effective functioning and management of protected areas, including wetlands, biosphere reserves, sacred landscapes, GSBAs. You've seen it again. This is the same GSBAs that now, with all the areas that are supposed to be exempted, this area is no longer of importance to our government. They are saying GSBAs, which are actually the repository of Ghana's biodiversity assets, are no longer relevant for any action towards biodiversity in Ghana. Now let me show you an example of what a GSBA is. A case in point is the Atiwa Forest Range Reserve. This forest reserve in 1924 was gazetted as a National Forest Reserve. It became a special biological protection area in 1994. The same place, because of its uniqueness, was considered a hill sanctuary in 1995. It became a GSBA in 1999 through a World Bank funded program. And then it became an important bird area in 2001. A legacy KBA in 2006. And as we speak, Atiwa Forest is listed on the Alliance for Zero Extinction sites across the world. Now, the government is saying by this LI that this GSBA is not as important as a teak plantation. That is how serious this law is. And we have 30 of such places, 30 of such places of such GSBAs in Ghana, which has actually been presented as Ghana's clearinghouse mechanism towards our contribution to the CBD, the Convention on Biological Diversity. So if that is it, I guess then, aside we just challenging the legality or the capacity of the law of this LI, we might also have to consider challenging if the law can actually usurp an international convention that we have ratified. Now, this is the CBD. And it talks in Article 8 talks about in situ conservation. In situ meaning that you are not capturing the species and putting them in a zoo or putting them in a special place, but you are managing them in the very space that you find them. So in the forest reserves and in the protected areas. Establish a system of protected areas. It talks about develop awareness guidelines for the selection and management. It also talks about regulate or manage biological resources important for the conservation of biological diversity. If you look at how one particular location has been given several accolades in terms of its biological significance, how then can we effectively do this kind of in-situ conservation if the same areas are now of no significance when it comes to mining? Then it also talks about promotes the protection. It talks about promote environmentally sound, sustainable development. Can mining in a GSB be sound in any way? Rehabilitate and restore degraded areas. So it talks about rehabilitating and restoring, not further destroying. And then from the CBD, we come to the latest agreement that speaks to biodiversity conservation by states. And this is about several actions that is proposed to ensure that biodiversity is protected across all countries in the world. And as a result of that, we have a draft biodiversity policy, which is actually an important, and one of them key draft national targets is ensure that areas and agriculture, aquaculture, fisheries and forestry are managed sustainably. And then another target, restore, maintain and enhance nature's contribution to people, including ecosystems and the services they provide. Now, so we have seen that if you look at all our laws, there's nowhere, I think I don't know when we decided or when they had a meeting to say, let's just throw away all of these policies. So in effect, you see that one single law has come to really roll back a lot of policies, progressive policies towards sustainable forest management and biodiversity conservation. And issues of food security, water, climate resilience, and even health is critically compromised due to the limitations that has now been removed as a result of LI2462. We are therefore of the opinion that the LI is very much retrogressive, does not in any way support our action on REDD+, our action on protecting our forest reserves, the National Green Ghana agenda. All those policies that you can talk about is not relevant if we are going to let this law stand. And I think that we can't but to concur that this LI must be repealed with immediate effect. I end here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dara. Please, let's give him a hand of applause. All right, so we will not take questions for him. We want to do the second presentation, then we box all the questions together. I think because of time, we will not separate the questions per presentation. Okay. So we have, yes, we have Dr. Adam, the CEO of Ghana Timber Millers Organization. He's going to give us the perspectives of the forest industry on the impact of this law. And for us, I think that people accuse us of being civil society, so probably we don't have industry experience. The industry man is here. So please, let's welcome Dr. Adam with a hand of applause. Please. Yes, you can. Yeah, you can.
Okay. Thank you, Mustafa, and your organization for granting us space at this forum also to make a contribution to the discussion on what this law meant or means for all the stakeholders. I'm not going to spend much time. I will just probably go straight to what we think about the law, but just some few slides to indicate the importance of the resource that we are dealing with. Much has been said about the construction of the law. So my first question will be, even why do we need a law? And then we have also been told about policy objectives or policy statement with respect to the forest resources of a nation. Now, if these two frameworks are important, why shouldn't we make it work to improve our businesses or whatever interests that we have within the country? So the industry sector is looking at some of the impacts that this law will make on their businesses, and also their ability even to meet the obligations that they have to the country. I'm starting from the premise that as a professional forester, does this law even make sense to me? And does this have any relevance to the businesses that I'm in? And we think that the state intervention in forest resource issues are needed in a way, in areas of policy and legislation. For what? To ensure that there is effective and efficient protection and conservation of the forest for their environmental, ecological, social, economic, and financial benefits. And I brought this from this particular book, which I picked in 1989 from Germany. And it still makes sense. I'll give you the reference at the end of the presentation. Now, in Ghana, we also need to note that the government does not own land, as far as I know. And therefore, its government is coming to intervene in the management of the land and natural resources. It must be done with some objectives. And that the policies and laws should bring security to the resource to enhance environmental health, which our policies talk about. The policy and law should support growth of forest-based economic activities that generate sustainable revenue to improve social life. And that policies and laws should meet international criteria for conservation of biological resources. Even if we are going to harvest or get our timber from plantations, we still need the natural forest ecosystems for several purposes. It's the source for our genetic material if we're doing any improvement in the wood or fiber, whatever we get from the natural forest. If we have to establish plantation, that will be the source of our planting material. So we cannot do away with the natural ecosystems. Now, we've had a brief on the policies in Ghana. And coming from the private sector, we think that the past and even current policies have been shaped in a way to benefit us. And we can look at the earlier policies as far back as the beginning of the 20th century, where we were looking at establishing institutions that will manage our forests. Through that, we know that we had some areas reserved as protected areas. We couldn't do much, but the records indicate that by 1947, many years back, we managed to put aside 1.2 million hectares within the high forest zone, and then additional 600,000 in the savanna zone. There were some additions, but the reservation could not be concluded when there was a change where we had independence, the so-called independence, and then everything was handed over to us. Whether we were able to continue that, I think you can tell the story better. But even at that point, we also know that this, I mean, Derek gave a percentage of 16%, which I don't know, I will not contest that. But I don't think we have up to 16% of our area under reservation. Even if we have, best practice requires that we get a minimum of 25%. We don't have the 25%. So 16%, we are still operating at below capacity. Now, so when even we started developing the management systems, we were able to also still look at the protection of the lands, having structures for conservation of timber resources, promoting forest-based industries. Unfortunately, at that point, the focus was on timber. So these days, when we talk about forest industries, we are mainly talking about timber. But things have changed. Now we have a whole lot of economic activities within the forestry sector, and all depending on the natural forest for their materials. There's also the academic and research aspect. We don't know much about the forest. We are still learning. So if we're going to destroy it, then it means that we are truncating or we are destroying the knowledge that we need for future development, and especially industrial applications. The last policy, 2012 policy, very brilliant. It incorporates the global emerging issues, climate change, whatever, into the business arena. So we're seeking to create balance between economic production and ecological conservation, managing to enhance ecological integrity of the forest and wildlife resources. How do you match this with mining in forest reserve? Because the areas that have been destroyed, we are talking about rehabilitating or restoring those degraded areas. Now, if we have to now promote and develop viable forests and wildlife-based industries, where are we going to do that if we don't have that resources available? So what does this law seek to accomplish? Mr. Kapam gave us a long list of it, or I think he just brought 3, but going through it, those of us from the industry sector don't see it bringing any value or adding value to the business aspect of forestry in Ghana. So what are our concerns? Currently, there is a good picture, and that is most of the investors in the forest industries are indigenous Ghanaians. When we sacked the foreigners, we took over. And so we are working to improve the Ghanaian economy based on what we can extract from the forest. We need to grow our investments, but that depends on the sustainable supply of local raw material. There have been an attempt to aid industry to import raw material. But I can tell you that is going to be very, very difficult. Even when Gabon offered to give us wood, we couldn't even arrange to transport them to Ghana. So if we are going to lose what we have, then we can't understand how much it is going to affect the economy. The little that we have, when we process, local consumers find it difficult to buy because it is expensive. So if we're going to destroy our forest and import, then you can reckon the impact. And as has already been said, the area of the forest that we used to have, on the map, it still has not changed. We have whether the 2.1 or the 2.2 million hectares. But the ability to supply the raw material is in question. We used to get as much as 1.2 million cubic meters a year. Now, we can get only 500,000 cubic meters a year. And so how do you use that to support a growing industry or developing an economy that is forest-based? So the area of productive forest has reduced significantly due to bushfires. Normally when we talk about the destruction, we don't talk about bushfires. But we've lost all the dry forest zone to bushfires. Right from the north of Kumasi, driving up to Kintampo, used to be timber production areas. Now you cannot get them because of fire. And then we have illegal logging. Here I'm talking mainly about the chainsaw loggers, also ravaging all the off-reserve areas and having even the courage to enter protected areas, to steal. And now we have on top of it illegal logging and then legal logging. Well, there's the illegal logging by the Galamsey people, but now with this law, logging in the forest reserve is going to be legal. Mining is going to be legal. At the moment, many companies are struggling to obtain the raw materials in order to operate profitably. And so almost half of the companies that we knew in the past are gone, they are dead. The new ones that are coming up cannot even operate up to 25% capacity. We know that the direction will be going into plantations, but how long is that going to take us? We need about a minimum of our 15 years to be able to make plantation material available, which also means investing in new technology to be able to process that. So now we are faced with this real threat of going to lose more production forest areas through the coming into force of the LI2462. And this is a big concern to the private sector. All those people who are operating within the forest reserves are scared because it's going to be difficult to challenge the law, but now we've been told that we have some action that we can take, and we believe that there will be more supporters to do this. So what we're saying is that mineral mining, which is associated with vegetation and soil disturbance, is not compatible with forest conservation and as well as sustainable forest management. The LI, which supports mining in gazette forests, pose a threat to sustainable forest management, and especially as it promotes mining in even globally significant biodiversity areas. And that forest reservation or conservation is a special land use option that does not allow extensive and permanent vegetation disturbance that's not compatible with mining. Even the logging that we do is selective. There is no clear felling in Ghana's timber harvesting. You are selecting or you are felling few stems per hectare. And so you leave the forest less disturbed. And you come back after 40 years when it would have recovered. Now, if you're going to do mining, you are cutting down the trees, moving the soil. How long is that going to take you to get the forest back? That will be over 400, 500 years. And so we see that this law is actually in conflict with past and current forest policy objectives for conservation and promotion of forest-based economic activities as well as rural livelihood. And so there is a need to reflect on it more, But the reference I gave is a book, it's a book entitled Brief History of German Forest, Achievements and Mistakes Down the Ages. And they put in there what lessons can be learned for forestry in developing countries. And this was published by GTZ. In that book, they talk about all the things that we are discussing now. How Germany harvested its forest and sold to Britain and Holland to build their navies. How Germany used the wood in mining, burning the wood to break down the rocks for other mineral extraction. How they cut down their trees for ranching. And then eventually they have to put it back. And it took them not less than 400 years to bring it back. That is plantation forests. And now Germany is one of the top countries with forest cover. In some regions, they have up to 72% forest cover. On the average, it's about 34% forest cover. We have only 12, 16 permanent forests there, but they are not in good health. How do we use that to support a forest-based industry? So fighting the law, I think this is what we need to tell the policymakers, that if you want to grow the forest-based industries, we have a challenge in even starting. The resource base is not there. And you are not investing in plantations either. So how do we grow the industry? Ladies and gentlemen, that is the message we have for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Adam. Thank you so much. So now, I know we'll be sitting for long, but this is a good time to ask your questions. So questions on Dara's presentation and questions on Dr. Adam's presentation. Please, I know people are warming up. Yes. Also comment. If you have comments, it's not only questions. If you have comment that is complimentary, well, it's not only complimentary. You can disagree. You can disagree because it's a free society. Yes. Please comment, questions.
Let me see that thing. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jennifer from Henpoano. When we were invited for this meeting and I got the draft or the summary of what we're going to discuss, the first question I asked is, how did it happen? How on earth did this law come into play in the first place? How did it happen? That was my first question. Because when I read through the document, I was like, it looked as if a group of people sat in one corner and did something behind closed door and just lammed it there without people knowing. And then somebody has to just discover that there's something like this. And it's so disheartening. The first presenter was talking about Atiwa. Now what we have on our hands now is also in the Amanzule, greater Amanzule area. That area too is the only peat bog or swamp forest in Ghana. A lot of species are endemic to that specific ecosystem. If now, as I talk now, there is a prospecting license that has been given to one mining company called Yellow Gold, and under the guise of a prospecting license, they have so many excavators there. The livelihoods of the people are at stake. And I wonder, like, how these things happen in the first place. And it's disheartening. If nothing is done about these things, I have given I always say that maximum 10 years, there will be no fish in our seas, there will be no forest, there will be no water, there will be no food in Ghana. And it will look as if it's a joke or it's far-fetched, but if nothing is done about this LI, saying that even the IUCN designated areas is not even protected anymore, it's sad. It's very, 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 very sad, and it's disheartening that we have to even discuss this law in the first place. It's sad that we as a people, it's like we don't care. Everything we are thinking about today, if those of old thought about only today, would we have come to meet the forest that we are even prospecting to be mined in? If we don't think about ourselves, we don't think about our children's children. Maybe some of us have money, you will send your children abroad, but remember that you cannot carry all your extended family abroad. And after that, just Cape 3.2 is the only coastal forest in Ghana. We have some projects there too. And some, when he tried protecting one of our staff, he was chased by the illegal mine. He was almost killed. If some of the people didn't intervene, he would have been killed by the miners. Just because he wanted to protect. One forest guard was actually shot. I think some of you saw it in the news. It's sad that we have to even discuss this thing in the first place. It's disheartening. And it's as if we want to play, like we want to cajole it, but it's sad. Thank you.
She's actually gingered the room. Thank you. Yes.
All right, okay. Thank you very much. I think that I would like to thank the proponent of this very agenda. They've really done a very good job and an in-depth, analysis and giving us all the exposure that we need. For me, after listening to all the three presentations, I know probably we might not have come to that end, but I am thinking that the legal route is the best way to go. We have to, as soon as possible, kick in the application for the legal fight. Then whilst it goes on, apply for the injection, because if we don't do that, I'm sure within the next year, almost everything is going to go. Research plots are being destroyed, the production areas, the protection areas, the GSBAs. We have signed all these international conventions. We have responsibility towards the global community. A lot of funding are coming in for us to do a lot of work. And we continue to destroy the very things that we go for money to protect. It's really sad, and it doesn't really give a good impression of what we are doing in Ghana. We normally would say in Ghana we have a lot of laws. Almost every good thing, every good convention, we are among the very few people who would put our signatures on it, and then a lot of money and resources come in. I've not been around but it's been quite some time since I completed school. A lot of projects have come into this system. The GSBAs that we are talking about, the World Bank funded it. I was one of those young ladies at the time who helped in drafting some of the management plans. Mr. Asari is here. And to see that now all these places are going to be destroyed, what are we leaving for the next generation? It's a bit disheartening. So for me, I think that the civil society organization, you've taken it up, maybe backed by the industry. You can really take this fight wherever it has to be taken, because this is really very critical. So for me, I'm just adding my voice and encouraging you that you must go for it.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So going through all this, I kept going back to some of these policies that we've signed on to. And one thing that I always remember from my classes is international environmental law, where we talk about principles of international environmental law, and one of them is as a sovereignty. We have the right to exploit our resources for our own developments. And this same international environmental law makes provision for intergenerational equity. But it looks like that is something that we never talk about as a nation. We only think about the now. We need to do this, we need to do that, we need to do this, so let's go and cut all this forest reserve and create this, create that for the people. What happens to the people when all these resources are gone? And the last time I was telling some students that you are now in school, learning to be natural resources managers. By the time you finish, there is nothing to be managed. So why are you going to school now? I think it's about time we organize all these students, and the youth especially, to understand what is happening to our country and the future that lies ahead of them. So we need to get up and start fighting for this generation. Thank you.
Okay, so let me manage this. From my right, then I will go. The good thing is that there's no question.
Yeah, Pacho. The Pacho, Mekachi, with the exception of Obroni, you would translate it to her. The Pacho, law, no cry any day. And coming back, when Daryl called me, because starting the journey behind Asankregwa, I sat in the car 8 a.m. and got here yesterday night 9 p.m. How? Said the now me cried and I'm because yes, we are not getting results. And to me, poor farmer, me job because I'm here for me were for me papa for you know said the only share boundary no timber contractor be Galamsey bi akotu asase ni affect me papa koko nti afie yenya koko. So I'm highly annoyed say mon frame me mama mba because me ka kra me ba na me say bia na na adote ha. Because obeka enye adwuma. Yes, it's not working. The so-called, excuse my words, ministers sit in their offices and think everything is going on. It is not. Where is the future? The future is today. And go to Asenkregwa and see how the youth are dying a day. Apart from Galamsey, I'm going to look at the whole system. Go and see. And the farmer is suffering so that she is forced to sell the cocoa farm and move. Why? Because of one person's interest. Go there and see these heavy cars. Galamsey, yes, not the cost site. It's nothing to them. And I weep within me that what are we doing as a nation? We say law. And so, one of these days, one of the pastors were preaching, hey, youth, because those in central region, and me shame me. Me kwa no oni masama okachire me say central region ye to puma ye mom bibi to sustain them. Na yenso what are they giving us? It makes sense. And to say mani kwa yura mu kotwendua. Ni dua odua okokom so wakobu kokom. So what do you expect the farmer to do? In fact, some of them are so annoyed say, someone anya adakro, forest officer not on. The youth will move to his office and sack him because as if he has teeth but he cannot bite. Until the right, any. Until I'm also preaching say, if we are here, then let us spell it well. Say this is it. And yes, I'm over from him, baby. And then me come shoppers and come me odeminya. Because I make a say moguo because we be crying or your forest whatever. On the department, but nothing is working. Go to Nimri Forest where Erasmus had the documentary. People were there tasked with shooting guns here and there. So my boys ran into the bush. I didn't see a crime that was a basa. In fact, it's very painful. We must be careful. One day, God will judge us.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Who hasn't talked? He has talked. Yeah, you still have to talk. Let me give to the people who haven't talked, then I'll come to you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gloria Ejare. I think, first of all, I express my grievances here. Joining this meeting early this morning as a young person. I must say that I don't want to say I'm traumatized, but I'm so scared for myself for the next 10 years along the line. How would my future look like? I was just asking myself, do I really want to be in Ghana again? Because looking at this situation is so terrible, and how we've been able to tweak the law to suit whatever they want to do is so alarming for me. And I don't know if the two ways that we want to address this will quickly solve this. So my question is that what is the fastest way to resolve this issue? Because I feel like we've had so many instances where people go to the court, sue government, we even have a TY issue in court and all of that. We are not seeing anything. I don't even understand what's going on. I'm really scared now. I'm not exaggerating, but it's alarming for me as a young person. And I don't know what I can even tell my other young people to do. Because we've been campaigning. I work with Ghana Youth Environmental Movement. We campaign a lot. We leverage our social media platforms. Like when you open my page, it's all about campaigning, calling on government. But there is nothing being done. Should I still stay in this country? How can I even encourage someone to stay here and fight for Ghana? So please, what is the fastest way in which we can address this LI issue? Because we want to do it. We want to come on board to push this agenda. How can we quickly solve this? That's my question.
Thank you. So one question so far. Okay, you have talked before. Mr. Osei, then I'll come to you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Joseph Osei from RTN. My question may be more of a question and a comment to Dr. Adams. You said that to the industry, what's happening is a threat. But knowing that the industry, there's also, you have some leverage when it comes to dealing with government in terms of the number of workers you employ and the investment that you've made. So, from what is happening, don't you, the industry, are you not seeing this as a threat to your investment? Simply because most of you, I think, you go to the international market to sell, and now moving even beyond legality to sell, sustainable timber. One key requirement of sustainability that any buyer will ask you is you have to prove that you have long-term management right or responsibility to your area, and this we are talking of not less than, say, 25 years. So with this, what is happening? We have a lot of uncertainty with regard to your concession, because you do not know today or tomorrow your area can come under mining exploitation. So uncertainty means a number of risks. And risk to what? To your investment. And it means that you should not be in a position to be reinvesting in your businesses, because there's a lot of uncertainty and there's a lot of risk. And if you are not investing, you are not employing, then what do you do to your workers? And I think maybe it's an area that you have to, because that's the language that the government, they also hear. You have a number of workers in your hands. So if you don't need to invest, and because there is a lot of risk and uncertainty, then I think you need to.
Yeah, good observation, good observation. So then I'll come back to you.
Okay, thank you. I personally see a lot of us being gingered enough to see action taken and to see through results. But I'm just also drawing our attention to the fact that experience and history has taught us that when these things are triggered, they are triggered to ginger all of us into action and not to leave the action to the people that triggered it. And so as we are all gingered here and want to see action and see results, may I suggest that we do not leave the aftermath and the actions that follow to the colleagues and the organizations that took action, because in the past, so we're talking about legal and all that, when we call and ask that people become plaintiffs and partners to the suit, may we all offer ourselves, because there is power in voices, as we see in that banner there. And so that is the only thing that I'm saying to all of us, so that it doesn't end here for us to leave everything to those that triggered this action. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mustafa. One observation and then probably a recommendation. I'm sure I see that Madam Hannah will be handling that later in the day. But the first observation is that it was really telling to hear Dr. Adam admit that for a very long time policies have been developed to favor private sector. If you didn't hear, I heard it. I don't know, Doc, you remember you said that. And it's very, very interesting. It's very, very worth noting that private sector is admitting to that. Probably let's take it from there. How do we, and I was discussing with Mr. Kapam, we see a lot of timber industry actors here. We don't see the miners. And I'm also seeing retired foresters here. I don't see current active ones here. And they are the ones that, are supposed to act. So what are we doing to get those actors in place? Then on the way forward, I'm thinking that the conversation has been, there's a lot of momentum about court, about policy, other things, and political things. I think there's one stakeholder group that we are not looking at, the DPs. There's a lot of laws, there's a lot of international laws that are coming up. And it's been spearheaded by these development partners and the EU, the US, and other things. I think it's about time. There's something that they call soft diplomacy. And I think the US and others are very good at using that. Maybe in strategizing, Darryl, maybe we should also look at how we bring in our development partners, especially the EU and others. And I know that Mr. Katako has been mentioning it. Anytime we are in Europe, he mentions that mining is even a bigger threat than even the so-called cocoa deforestation that we are talking about. Because look at what is happening now. They are opening up the floodgates to mining in almost all the forest reserves. But when it comes to farming, you are restricted. There are places that you cannot go. So please, ask a way forward. Let's look at the development partners. And also, please, those who are supposed to act, the foresters themselves, the current ones, let's see how we lobby them. I know it's difficult.
I think we lobby them. We actually invited a lot of them, but I think for strategic reasons, they cannot be heard talking about this. They either defend it or you keep quiet. I don't even come at all. Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Jeremiah. I work for Jack Sally. But if you remember, I fought Rosewood solely in this country. And I fought the late Chief Executive Officer for Forestry. And I told him something, and I want to repeat it here. Darrell, Dr. Adams said something. Government does not owe land. Where are the landowners in this process? I told Sir John, may he so rest in peace. And I remember I said something in one of the hotels along the sea. Joy, you were there, and you said you were not going to take my point because there was no evidence. Darrell has always told me my life is the best evidence. As at the time we were working in Rosewood, there was a Rosewood processing factory behind the land minister's house. And Joy, you rejected it. Now, where I come from, if traditional rulers are involved, and I'm citing an example currently in Solatuna Kalba district, in the morning when we wanted a prayer, somebody was praying and calling on Christ. I'm a staunch Catholic, but this is about land. Where is the Gan people to pour libation on the issues? Some of these things in my village, when they get angry, the landowners will release bees. The landowners will release snakes. The landowners will release wasps. Who are you, the forestry officer, to go and arrest bees? I got shot at 7 times in the Rosewood business because I'm a human being. So I want to tell my great-grandmother, invoke the bees. Go and shoot the bees. Security people, as I stand now in Savannah region, I made a case. A police officer is involved in deforestation, doing charcoal. And the regional minister will ask me, where are the evidence? Please, the dishonesty and lack of trustworthiness. And I conclude by what I told Sir John, may he so rest in peace, that Rosewood will strike him. Yes. When the committee went to him, the government committee, I was part of it, I represented civil society. He told us that we cannot come to investigate him and he will give us money. He needs, and he showed me a DC who was sitting in the office, that he was looking for jobs for the people, the promised job for the people. He will give a license and an extract, a permit to the DC to take it to the north to go and recruit us to cut rosewood and sell. And that's jobs they are creating. And I tell you, all the rosewood they did salvaging was in the night. The landowners didn't know. When I got my great-grandmother to invoke bees in one community, I won't tell you, you people go and destroy her. In one community, she invoked the bees. Everybody left. Because if you go in the night, the bees are working in the night. Thank you. So find a reason where the landowners are. And whether you're going to do this with the landowners. And when you want to do it, let me come and make a presentation on traditional policy. Then
traditional policy. Okay. Okay, so let's do just about 10 minutes of these questions and commentary, and then we can go to the next. You want to respond? Assignment edition. Okay, so maybe let's do that, and I'll come to you, Ben.
Right. Yeah, Mr. Say, you are perfectly right that industry has a leverage, when it comes to talking about how the government will even benefit from the implementation of such policies. The sad thing is that we have been engaging government. I have statistics to show that the workforce that we used to employ has drastically fallen by about 70%. The 100 companies that were in Kumasi now have less than 10 active ones. The whole nation, they are almost gone. Takoradi, now there's no timber company. Odan, there's no viable timber company. They are all some bench saw this thing. And just like somebody said, the international community is aware of what is happening. Now, if you look at our trade statistics, we used to export greatly to Europe. About 60% of our export was going to Europe. Now, if you look at the pattern now, it's falling drastically. Falling drastically. Why? One of the factors is that we are unable to demonstrate, to them, you are a certifier, to meet those criteria of sustainable forest management. Because they don't take the sort of documentation that they give to us. And the market is so sensitive for certified products. So in order to keep their business, they will not come and mix, illegal material with theirs. So the contracts that we are getting from Europe keeps going down. And that is what is happening. So we're still talking to government, we'll see.
Okay. All right, I think I'll take the next round of comment and then questions, and then we'll...
Thank you very much. Listening to the presentations that have come and the comments that have come from my colleague participants, the situation is very scary and alarming. We can't even say we are in a critical situation, but we have an emergency. It is an emergency as an operator from the timber industry. Let me share this with you. And I'll pick it from where Mr. Osei left, talking about the threat to the timber industry. Now, if I sit in my office, I look at the number of compartments that we have within the various of the harvesting schedule. I can then do my planning and then projections that I can have so much of odum to be able to meet my contracts. Now, but if you are there all of a sudden and then an area of your TEC is given out to mining companies without even engaging you as a TEC operator, they don't engage you. They start with prospecting and then they start with the actual mining. Before you even get to know this, the actual mining has started. Now, Oda River Forest Reserve, one of the reserves that you mentioned, we have a TEC area which is about 85 square kilometers. About 56 kilometers, 60% was given out for mining without even engaging a timber company. And then when we raised the issue, we were told, okay, we can give it to you as salvage. Now, 56% of that TEC area is about 35 compartments. Now, if you are asked to take it at a go to exploit the 35 compartments, which company has the capacity in terms of machinery and then equipment? So we have a serious situation on our hand. It is no more a critical situation, but it is an emergency. It's very, very sad. Like Mr. Osei said, it is a threat to the industry. And I don't know whether we have a future as timber industry. If it's going to continue this way, the speed with which we are moving, then what will be the future of the timber industry? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Yes, I'll come to you.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dorcas from IUCN, that's International Union for Conservation of Nature. So I also want to take it from the emergency point of view. Currently, you know, COP is around the corner. This is an entry point for us. I know a number of us are organizing side events there, and then the donor agencies are going to be there. That's where decisions are made. How can we package our position and make it known there? That is the quickest way we can go about it. Thank you.
Okay, that's a good point.
Hi everyone, my name is Rosemary Adiko. I work for Solidarity West Africa. I think I want to take it up from where she ended. I'm just looking at the EUDR regulations. It's starting December 2024. Gold is not part of the deforestation. So why can't we petition? And why can't we send a petition to the EU? That's for Ghana. If no other country, Ghana, gold from Ghana should be part of the products. Yes, so that even if it's going to be a supplementary something, we have a lawyer there. We should just send a petition. That should be very, very fast. Thank you.
This one I can answer. Yeah, okay. No, you can do that. So I'm doing facilitation, so you do the answer.
Thank you. My name is Raymond, and I am happy and sad at the same time. I'm happy because it got to a point in time when deforestation was caused by the timber industries. When we were calling them, we were not getting them. Now livelihoods are being affected. Now you can see that you are also agitating. That's how it goes. So those who are also into mining and they think that that is the only way, one day they will also come and cry here. So in the nutshell, I'm saying that when something is happening, we don't take a lip service and take the attitude that we don't care. It will hit us. So now you have seen how it is hitting all of us. Farmers were hit, timber industries are now hit, and their livelihoods are being threatened. That shows the seriousness of whatever we are doing. So when we are talking about sustainable forest management, sustainable natural resources management, it means that all of us, irrespective of where we are, when we are enjoying, we forget to know that one day we will be at the receiving end. So it's a word of caution to all of us that when we are talking about these things, we should be serious and we should be involved no matter where we are. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Okay. You are not responding to what he said. Okay, so...
So in response to what you said, when the discussions on the EUDR started in 2021, me and him, we kept drawing attention of the EU stakeholders to the fact that if gold mining is excluded from the EUDR, there will be a major loophole because it's a major contributor to deforestation. They didn't mind us. Just September, 2 months ago, we had a face-to-face meeting with the EC officials in Brussels, and we raised this issue again. They told us that it's too late, but there are other initiatives that we should be looking at, like NDCs and all that. So the EU is not really ready to go back to look at mining as a major cause of deforestation. We have to find other ways of dealing with this.
Well, I think that they probably have more information than us. What they are saying is that the EU is considering another regulation that will deal with mining. That will include the transition minerals and all of those things. But for now, yes, EU, that as a country, we should also take action. EU cannot be the only one. In fact, indirectly, that's what they...
Yes. We were in a meeting with them, and they pulled the import percentages, the quantum of gold the EU imports from developing countries like Ghana and others, and it was very, very at 1.3% or something, just small. And even out of that, it was Switzerland that was importing more, and technically Switzerland is not even part of the EU, so there was no need for them to concentrate on it. So that was their point.
Yes. They think that our gold is going to China, Dubai, and all those things. Why should EU be the one regulating our gold for us? Okay, I think I need to end this one in just 2 more questions.
Yes. This is not a question, it's a recommendation. I think we have all gathered here without the prominent, I would say prominent stakeholders, those who can really have impacts on what we are saying here. I would ask the organizers, I would want to plead with the organizers, if you can organize this once again, where we will make sure that those forestry people, look, retired officers are here. The miners are not here. The EPA people that we are talking about them, they are not here. So I will plead with the organizers, if we could organize this thing once again and bring them. If they don't come, let us go and organize the thing at their doorsteps. And there they will hear us. Because it's very painful. After all this wonderful contribution, look, I've shed tears. When she was talking and others were talking, I was crying. 5 years' time, we are not going to have water to drink. Water is now more expensive than fuel. Now, if you go to certain hotels, 1 liter of water is 20 cedis. How much is 1 liter of petrol? So please, I will plead with you. Find money. Even if you have to come to industry, you come. We'll give you our small peanuts.
Okay, to be honest, we did invite a lot of them. We invited Forestry Commission, we invited EPA. Yes, but I mean, you can't force them to come.
I guess we are on a mission to fix Ghana, isn't it? Fix the country. We are fixing the country. Why don't we embrace other efforts to fix the country as a way of, maximizing this kind of, because the information is very critical and the ordinary people should understand what we are talking about. That is where we can actually go into their minds and hearts to support this. So let's fix the country.
All right. Thank you. Maybe, do you think we have to take this, if we had money, we should take this to the landscape and then get people understand what is happening? Maybe if we had money, I actually put a condition there. If we had money, should we take it to the landscape? Maybe people in Accra feel very remote from the action. Maybe. What will be the end game? Will people be angry enough to take action? Yeah, well, I don't know. All right, I think we'll move to the next section. The next section will be facilitated by Madam Hannah Uso Koranti of Welcome. Madam, welcome. I think we are getting to the end. We need your energy so that we can
Well, thank you very much, everybody. Well, if you go for a funeral, they would always allow you to disbelieve that the person is dead. And then it becomes real to you, and that's when you start weeping. They will allow you to weep to a point. After weeping, you have to sit down and plan. So that's my simple job. We have heard a lot. We have complained. I saw the way people were lamenting, and I said, well, I have passed that stage long ago, because it has always been CSOs, NGOs advocating for this and that. I think now it has come to our doorsteps as citizens of this country, and also our development partners. We cannot continue weeping. What do we do? And in the next 10 or so minutes, that is what we'll be discussing. Actually, as we were speaking, some points were put across. If you agree to that, maybe we would do a communique as a first step. I'm not saying the communique is a solution to what we are discussing. As a first step. But then individually, collectively,
sub-regionally, globally, what do we do? Because these has linkages not only for our country, but it's of global significance. And so we've heard a lot about the challenges of the LI, the inconsistencies in our legal framework, where we disregard the parents' law, the constitution, and then at the end of the day, we have policies and laws that are not in conformity with the constitution, let alone an LI which should be premised within a law. In this case, we don't see any reference of this LI in any law from the discussions that we've had so far. And so the question that I want to pose, not only to civil society groups, because over here I listed a number of groupings, the industry are here, players are here, the civil society, we are here, institutions are here, though some of them are on pension like me, but you are here and you can still make a contribution. We have some regulators around. We have the frontline communities present. I double as NGO and then frontline community because I come from a mining community. And then we have our development partners around. We have the media. Did any parliamentarian come? No. Okay, so we would assume they are here and then we speak for them. And so we are going to look at the various action points, whether we can work with this LI 2022 LI on forestry, mining in the protected forests 2462, whether we can work with it. As we discussed, we should also look at the question of ownership of land. Government is not the owner of lands, at least in Ghana. So, and then this notion that they are exploiting minerals for our benefits, whether it is exploitation of the minerals in our names to benefit people, we need to talk about. And what happens to them is management around. So please, I wouldn't want to take your time. What are the next steps? And I want to focus this on the various groups around. So maybe the investors, the industry players, one person can take some 2 minutes maximum, because we've said a lot. Now we are focusing on solutions. How do we move from this point? So 2 minutes. And can somebody who has very nice writing jot down the points for us? And if you agree that we should have a communique, it will be incorporated in the communique as a first step, and then there will be follow-up actions. Thank you. Industry, are you ready? If you are not ready, yeah, you are ready, so yeah. So one point that you want, one action point that you want to see. As they are thinking about what they want to come out with, other groups should also be thinking about one point that you want to see. Yeah. My writing is horrible. If I write, nobody can read. The mic, please. Do we have a? Yeah.
Yeah, the industry has two strategies. The first, which we are already doing, is the engaging the sector ministry and bringing to focus the impact that is going to make on our business in the way of job losses and revenue, sustainable revenue to the state. This is what we've been using in getting the government to listen to us. The second point is the law is now in effect and something must be done. Industry, we don't shy away from going to court. We go a lot at company level and at group level. So we support that action of going to court or whatever, I mean, taking court action, as well as the political action, which we think industry has a leverage there.
Thank you. Just to remind people that it is not a law, it is LI, which should be premised within a law, which is not having that reflection. Yes. Thank you very much. Industry has spoken. Institutions, government institutions, if they are here and they want to talk, the way forward. Yeah. Oh, we are coming. Yeah. Government institutions, nobody is here. The retired ones, can you make a contribution? You were once there, and then maybe the problems began with you, so you are in a better position to recommend solutions. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I think this dialogue was sort of initiated by the GIF at KNUST, which somebody like Daryl did so well, and then there were other contributors. And I think it came up that now that luckily we are in the political season, let's craft a 10-point type of responsible environmental action plan involving mining, forest reserve protection, management, and then get them to sign onto. We should, first of all, after finishing, publicize it for all interested NGOs and entities, including the private sector, that they endorse that action plan. And then from there, we should begin to individually get them to sign onto it. The candidates themselves, not even the parties, including some parliamentarians. And then publicize those who have signed and those who haven't signed, and please campaign against those who don't sign. Thank you.
So you see, the older people would always have wisdom. Then do we have current regulators around any regulatory institution? Okay. The frontline community, the CREMA groups, they are here. They are here. Who would want to speak? CREMA, okay.
So I will advise we engage the paramount chiefs and then letting them to know what is about to happen, so that they also bring in their advices and then their contributions. Thank you.
So what would you do as community people who are affected by some of these actions?
No, we will not allow this thing to happen in our community, because actually I'm a cocoa farmer. And then I know cocoa farming is renewable. Mining, we cannot renew it. So doing the mining there will not help us. So we will not allow it.
How wouldn't you allow it? She want to help you.
Okay.
I'm interested in the how.
Thank you. As my colleague is saying, that you will not allow. Before you realize that thing is even going on, and as Asiedun Ketia said it earlier, any idiot can go to court. So you send them to court, and these same lawyers in court, so for me, the law must work. And if there's no prosecution, we should prosecute them. The law must work. Thank you.
This is heavy, eh? If the law is working, we should make the law work. We should prosecute them. It is saying that if the law will not work, citizens should prosecute them. I'm not saying much.
Thank you very much. I'm John Amuzu, Ghana Institute of Foresters. What I want us to look at is this: fix the country. I think they have an agenda of organizing this protest for 1 year. And they are looking at every sector. They are not looking at the government or per se, but at the country. So they have a week where they will go on a luta in terms of the environment. So then we will have to join them to be part of that agenda, so that we can articulate the points that we have made here for the general public to know the seriousness of what is happening. So already we have somebody who is going to lead us. And then to add, I think Forester Asare indicated that the GIF organized a forum in Kumasi where Daryl was a key presenter. Coming 23rd, we are organizing our annual general meeting, and we are still looking at this law. And lawyer Mustafa Seidu is one of the presenters. So we are building on this, and at the end of it, we will come out with a communique on what we think as an institution, professional body, what we think should be done. So we are building on the issue and gathering points. So definitely you hear from us.
So I like the spirit of I will do that and not they will do that. So let's be talking about I will do this more than they will do that. So CSOs, where are they? Okay, you are here. Who will speak for you? Anyway, I'm a civil society, and I'm assuring you that I don't waste too much time in hotels. I go to the community and educate them. And once you educate them, they take the actions. Okay. So that's what I'll be doing.
Henpano, just Tuesday, next week Tuesday, we are actually going to Apetem to organize a community sensitization meeting with the youth there to tell them about the dangers or the implications of the mining in their community. The people are promising them jobs. So we want them to be aware that the promise of jobs is a facade. And so they should rather partner with us and reject that that mining prospect that has started already, so that when they come in, the youth would rally against, and then they will not allow, they will put pressure on their community leaders not to endorse it for it to go on. Thank you.
And please remember to talk about the LI. What do we do with the LI?
I think I have two points. Let me start from the bottom. Gold has a market, a global market. Is there any way we can be able to bring our concerns to the gold global market so that, as was done for blood diamond from Liberia, Sierra Leone and all that, we begin to hold discussions with whatever the markets are for gold to ensure that just as was done for the timber sector, we begin to treat gold the same way, that they should begin to do due diligence on where they are buying their gold from. If it's coming from bad sources, then the market should be spoiled. And the second one is we've had a very good education from Clement this morning on the laws and all that. Is it possible that we can engage with Parliament with the education that we've had on the badness of or to put it that way, how bad the loss is and the impasse and all these things, the fact that they didn't go through the right processes and all that, as a way, as part of the actions towards getting the law repealed.
Thank you very much. So, civil society. Okay. Yeah. That we should create a market crisis for gold exploited in globally significant biodiversity areas.
Okay, thank you. I think my point cuts across all other points that we are making. Whatever approach that we intend to use, we should have one basic foundation. The foundation is that why were some areas designated as forest reserves? Has those reasons changed? As at now, So if whatever approach that we use, let's keep hammering on that. At the time those areas were being designated as forest reserves, there were other land use forms that they could have been put to, but they weren't. Let's keep hammering on that and go back to the foundation. I believe that will lay more emphasis than if we want to look at we don't want it or we want it. Let's go back to why they were even made forest reserves from the beginning. Thank you very much.
Now the media, do we have media reps here? Media. Okay. What are you going to do?
All right. So I've heard one thing today that has to do with engaging Parliament. Now, I believe we need to engage Parliament, but we have to be very specific about the people we are engaging. Next year is an election year. A lot of them are seeking re-election. They need funding to do their campaigns. So I'm thinking that we should target parliamentarians who did not qualify in their primaries. People who are not seeking any re-election. It might come across as funny, but those people have nothing to lose. So if they are championing the private members bill, it's easier for them. When the companies that are into this come to them, they are not running any campaign. So what are you coming to fund? But if you are going with MPs who are seeking re-election, there is a danger there. Because when it comes to politics and elections, wherever the money comes from, so long as it runs the campaign, it works. And for the media, today if not for today, I wouldn't have known about the challenges in this particular LI. So why don't we have a session where we engage the presenters and editors specifically? So when we have that conversation with them and expose this to us, I'm saying them, I'm part, us. What happens is that it informs the way we now go about issues. And entering into a political year, while talking about the politics, this is also one of it that affects people's lives directly. Then with that understanding, it will be easier to inform our programming and most importantly, make people available for us to speak to. Sometimes you want people to speak to, you call, nobody wants to talk. So if we have the resources, it would help in our productions. Thank you.
So when you are spoken to, please do accurate reporting. Thank you. And media. Sorry? Let me finish with the list. So development partners. Do you have anything to say? Obiako. Where are they? They are all gone. So, yeah, she's also gone. Okay. And so private sector, I'm giving you the last slot. Are you part of them?
Yes, I just wanted to add something to what the gentleman said about political engagement. I think that the independent candidate, Alan Kojo Tremanting, would be a good person to get on this and ask him how this falls in line with his Ghana transformational agenda. Thank you.
Okay. So which okay.
Okay. So for me, what I would do is to educate and sensitize the communities through projects. But as development partners, what we really need to see is concrete evidence, well packaged, and selling it out. So I would retreat on the issue of COP. It's a good entry point for us. We have institutions here who are going there to do side events. It takes a lot of money to be able to do side events. Let's try and incorporate some of these issues. Maybe if our communique is ready fast, or let's say a brief or fact sheet or something like that, we can share flyers and all that. That's where all the developmental partners are. EPA is not here because they are busy organizing COP. Yeah, so we will get the institutions there as well. And these are where we go to package ourselves to get funding. So if the developmental partners and the donors get to hear of this alarming story, they'll be able to withhold some of these proposals and all that for us to come into an amicable solution before they release funds. So for myself, we are also implementing projects on the ground, and we will carry the information to the communities to strengthen them, because I'm happy to see Madam Dorothy here, who is a member of one of the creamers in Wasamenfi that we work through. So we are going to keep sensitizing them to get the information on board. But we need to package our information very well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. 5 seconds.
And then during that education, you also add alternative livelihood to it for us, so that it will additional. And I'm saying to get to win the community members, you need to educate them, and you add alternative livelihood so that they also don't go back to what we are saying.
So would you opt for mining and then have snail railing as alternative livelihood? These are some of the questions we have to ask. So thank you, everybody. Now you were talking about the communique. We did the drafts and the concerns. As we were speaking this morning, people were putting the drafts down. And then the comments that have come out would be included some way, somehow. So maybe we go through the document, and if you think it's appropriate with the additions, then we can send that out as a first step. But then now we want to ensure that the action is not in the write-ups or the meeting here. The action should be down there. There's a growing from Mebuana. Because I don't think once you destroy the integrity of the forest, anything matters. It's lost and lost forever. And so now we shouldn't be behaving like the Nazi Germany when they were arresting the Jews, so they are Jews, so they are Muslims, they are Christians. At the end of the day, all of them were marching to be killed because they were not each other's keeper. So let's work together. And so this is what the draft is. Can you please enlarge it a bit so that... So the stakeholder engagement on regulations on mining in Ghana's forest reserves. LI too big. Shift left. Go left, Kakra. Okay, yeah. LI2462, 2022, Accra, 9th November 2023, Aliza Hotel. Background. Large-scale mining in Ghana's forest reserve has been relatively limited due to the 2021 and 2018 environmental guidelines for mining production forest reserves in Ghana that restricted mining to less than 2% of their production areas. Protected forest reserves, like globally significant biodiversity areas, whole or in part, were completely excluded from mining under these guidelines. Whole or in part because Agenia Bipo Forest was mined, part of Neem Forest Reserves was mined, and the sad part of it was that the timber on the forest reserves were just pushed into a valley and buried. So nobody could benefit from that. And so this is the first paragraph. 1 second for comments, or we continue. Is it okay? Since November 2022, yes?
In terms of substance, fine.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do the editing after the whole thing. Since November 2022, and the passage of the LI, Environmental Protection in Mining and Forest Reserves Regulations, however, mining threats to Ghana's forest reserves, globally significant biodiversity areas, and even national parks have suddenly escalated. This is evident in the mining leases already granted in 8 forest reserves, including 3 globally significant biodiversity areas. A further 12 mining lease applications across 8 forest reserves and 1 mining lease application for Kakum National Park. So that's the situation now, and it's ongoing. So no forest or national park is safe. To draw attention to the threat posed by the LI and its implications for Ghana's policies and legislation. The Nature and Development Foundation, in partnership with Arusha Ghana, Wakam, and Oxfam, organized a one-day stakeholder forum on 9th November 2023 that culminated in the agreement of next steps to address this new threat. The forum was attended by representatives of forest communities, civil society, development partners, research institutions. Did they come? The research institutions. Okay. The Ghana's Environmental Protection Agency, were they here? So please note that one. The Forestry Commission, Minerals Commission, ministers and parliamentarians, they all didn't come. And then private sector. Please add private sector. And so Ghana's and Ghana's a private sector. So and I mean, okay. Forestry Commission. Oh, we wanted you to comment and you didn't speak. So please comment. The way forward. Next steps. No, I won't. Okay. Yeah, he spoke. No, he spoke. He spoke. So yes, that's covered. So Forestry Commission is here and the private sector. Okay. So recognitions. Can we go on? Yeah. Okay. They say the professional something. Of professional foresters. They should write their name properly. Name is important. Oh, what paper? Okay. So, recognitions. Are we okay? Can we go on? Okay. Ghana's forest reserves were established for specific purposes. Media. Please add media. I'm pa mobile pa mobile my idea. We'll fine-tune that after the whole discussion. Yeah. So Ghana's forest reserves were established for specific purposes, including safeguarding water resources, securing forest products for local communities, and supporting forest and agricultural crops in and around them. Mining has never been one of those purposes, and from all intents and purposes, not compatible use of forest reserve. But I think we should, the first point should be that Ghana's land is owned by citizens as a first step. And then we'll continue with that, because that came out. Yeah, so you said, yes, the land is owned by citizens and not the state. We will fine-tune that after that. So globally significant areas were set aside for the protection of biodiversity and offer one of Ghana's clearinghouse mechanisms as signatory to the International Convention of Biological Diversity, full stop. The environmental guidelines for mining in protected forest reserves in Ghana 2021 and 2018 have provided good protection for large-scale mining in forest reserves and globally significant biodiversity areas. Ghana's Forestry Development Master Plan targets 2036 for the complete elimination of mining in forest reserves, and 2020 for no new permits to mining companies for forest. Is it for or in forest reserves? We'll look at that. Ghana's policy and management plans for forest reserves require degraded forests to be restored. So these are the observations. These are what the policy captured. The forest reserves provide critical ecosystem services and natural resource for local communities and Ghana, in Ghana, not in Ghana, including clean water in Ghana, including clean water resource and climate resilience. Protection and enhancement of the integrity of Ghana's forest reserves is critical to Ghana's international commitments on climate change and biodiversity, including the REDD+, the Paris Agreement, Ghana's nationally determined contribution, the Forest and Climate Leaders Partnership, and the Convention on Biological Diversity, as well as globally biodiversity framework agreements. So these are the existing legislation and instruments. Please go on. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we can add that to Ghana's land are owned by citizens. The present, as it exists in the Constitution, is owned by the dead, the living, and yet to be born. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. It's a sentence. Is this addressing your concerns, or you want a separate? Yeah.
But I was thinking that we need to, even though yes, the land belongs to the people, but it's been vested in, I mean, the president in trust for the people. So,
no.
The
mineral, not the land.
It's the mineral, not the land. Yeah, but in terms of forest reserves, you know, that's really the general, and a lot of these things are really very focused on the forest reserves, because you also need to be careful that you don't bring statements that people already, as soon as it pops up, then they begin to, you know, challenge something. So that's why I'm just saying that we need to be a bit careful.
The mention of the Constitution covers what the statement she's making. So the Constitution covers it. Yeah. Yeah.
So the Constitution is very explicit that land belongs to the dead, the living, and yet to be born. And so that's how it's stated. So there's no state ownership of land in the Constitution, except when the state goes about to acquire it under compulsory acquisition. And it's done only when prompt payment of fair and adequate compensation is done. Otherwise, it's not legal.
Yes, I think for the first sentence, it's good we state, we talk about the land being owned by the citizens, and maybe we can put into brackets present and future generation. But it's also important that we recognize that though it's owned by the people, the minerals under any piece of land is vested in the government for the benefit of the people. In the state, sorry. It's vested in the state for the benefit of the people. This is to more or less inoculate our statement so that nobody will get the opportunity of punching holes.
That one would deal with it with the lawyers. But it's vested in the state. And the state, the government is the trustee, not the owner, even for the minerals. Okay. Yeah, we'll make that one tight. Yeah, okay. Your pocket lawyers will help out. Okay, can we go on? And that minerals are vested in the state, not the land. As for the land ownership, it's owned by, well, so you can have this, and that the minerals are vested. Yeah. So we'll look at that statement. The minerals are vested in the president, yeah, in the states, who acts on behalf of the people, yeah. Okay. So can we go on? We'll look at, and then the future generation. Do we have a separate point for that? I think it's important. Okay.
Okay, so please go. We've finished with this. Oh, problems, yeah. So LI2462 is unconstitutional and an overreach by both the Environmental Protection Agency and the Minister for Environment. The LI contradicts Okay, so put it in context. And innovation. Hey, Sana post in it here. Minimum. And so the LI contradicts the constitutional framework of Ghana, framework for managing Ghana's natural resources. Continue. Full stop, yeah. The regulation on mining forest reserves through LI2462 by the EPA usurps the role of both the Forestry Commission and Minerals Commission, which is clear. The LI does not have legislative authority and is therefore legally invalid. LI does not carry legislative legitimacy. Okay, so these 2 points, can't we merge them? Once it's invalid.
Yeah, this one is talking about the specifics of a forest reserve.
Okay.
Not the capacity, but the issue relating to it changing the status of a protected area.
Okay, so you're talking about it has not declassified the forest, and so you cannot, give it out for mining. You need to declassify. So maybe we'll have to be a bit clear on that. So LI does not carry legitimacy to override or erode the protection conferred on the land classification as a forest reserve. Okay. Furthermore, the LI is facilitating the granting of mineral lease in forest reserves and other protected areas, presents an escalated threat to forest reserves and other protected areas. It's not consistent with the purpose for which forest reserves and protected areas were established. It is not consistent with Ghana's policy for forest and natural resource management, including Ghana's Forest and Wildlife Policy 2012, Land Policy 1999, National Environmental Policy 2012, National Biodiversity Policy Draft, which is still a draft, and Climate Adaptation and Mitigation Policies. Does not align with Ghana's Forestry Development Master Plan 2016 to 2036, and its targets for, and it has targets, and its targets for excluding mining. Okay, we will have to look at it. For excluding mining from forest reserve. Okay, it's looking at the master plan. Contravenes the Ghana's international commitments on climate change mitigation, such as Paris Agreement, Ghana's nationally determined contribution, the Biodiversity Protection Agreement, and also the ECOWAS directives and Ghana's own policies on mining. It contravenes.
Yeah. No, I just, so am I sometimes.
ECOWAS. It's ECOWAS. Conventions policy. ECOWAS, yeah. And even the ECOWAS mining policy
Yeah.
clear that they should respect the rights of. It's convenience policy, right? It's not plan, it's policy. Is it plan or policy? It's policy.
Okay. I was just thinking that let's be mindful of the length of people. Attention now is our attention is a bit short. If you take this in, and it's going to take me. A phone is calling. I dump it. Okay. So you just need.
So edit. Edit, yeah. We'll edit and then make it tight. We'll accelerate degradation and deforestation of Ghana's forests and protected areas. Yeah, please go on. So we are proposing Parliament and government must immediately repeal the LI. The Minerals Commission must immediately cancel all mining leases in forest reserves and the globally significant biodiversity areas granted since the LI was passed, and refuse all mining lease applications in those areas and national parks. Civil society, research institutions, and government must collaborate to design and enact an act of parliament that ensures protection and sustainable use of Ghana's forest reserves, national parks in perpetuity, in line with the Forest and Wildlife Policy of 2021, as well as the Forest Development Master Plan of Ghana. Ghana, government, private sector, civil society, and other sectors must increase efforts to reforest and restore Ghana's degraded forest reserves. Okay, can we do that? And then while all the stakeholders realize that forest reserves and other protected areas hold both economic and non-monetary value for the people and nature, they see sustainable green pathways such as ecotourism and sustainable forest product harvesting as the only option for developing the forests. Mining must never be part of government's forest management program. They must at all costs be fully protected from such destructive economic activities. Atrocious and destructive.
I think the last sentence. Is it the last? No, the last part, one sentence. Mining must not be part of government forest. Mining in forest reserves.
Okay. Yeah, then, yeah, I'm part. Yeah. So, people, the draft communique.
Darryl, on the last sentence, okay, just before the one, the one you say, the only option is yes. I think when you categorically say only option, it limits space for engagement. And so let's see how we can put that will not limit our leverage of progressive, better, is more like. Okay.
So, any other comment, please? This is the communique we are going to present.
There is a false presumption that gold hold better or greater value to the country than any other resource that the land can provide. And that's why we are emphasizing gold and forgetting that we are destroying the basis of other resources that we can get from the land.
You got the point. This false presumption that if you don't mine, then you cannot develop. It's a myth. It's a myth, and that should not be encouraged. So we can have a sentence around that. Yeah. Okay. So we have 2 minutes. Any other comment, please? 2 minutes. Otherwise, can somebody move that we adopt this communique after corrections as the outcome of the meeting?
Subject to editing, I move that this communique be adopted as a true and correct result of the deliberations of the meeting. Wellington Baden, Portal Forest Estates, private sector.
Any seconder from another sector, maybe? Who? Kramer, okay, so tell that.
So, Dorothy UC from Wasa Memphis Kramer is second the motion.
Yo, so those who are for, let's see by hands. For the motion, yeah, there's a motion. No counter motion, I should have asked that one. Those against, please let's see by hands. Abstentions? Okay, so the motion has passed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Hannah. Thank you so much. So the intention is that this will go to press on Monday, right? Okay. Well, they will do their report, but in terms of publication, we want to publish it in the newspaper. Yes. Say it again.
Dominant language that a lot of people understand, local language that a lot of people understand. It should be communicated in it. And if I can suggest places that now most people who listen in or tune in, that's Oyoripa program, a lot of people watch. And Onuya, those two stations are the trending stations now. And if this information is going, it should be in Chi, so that a lot of people would hear it. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so we intended to close 2 o'clock. It's 10 minutes past 2. I have a few announcements. Yes, so soon we've come to, it's not actually so soon. Yes, we've come to an end of the program. But before we do the closing prayer, we have a packed lunch. We know people don't have time. So when you get out, there's a packed lunch just by the poolside. You pick it. I think my ladies have been going around trying to make sure that you don't incur additional costs going to your house, you know. So just to take care of the transportation. We acknowledge we can't pay for your time like we do for consultant, but at least your transportation in coming here, we want to reimburse you. What other communication announcement? Okay, so I think you agree with me that we've done our part a little bit. Halfway, this is a first step. We want to take this further. And it will involve different actions. So for me, I say that it is not an either or, that we do a political or we do a legal, but there are other things. One of the things I think we can do immediately is some of the companies who are doing the application who have been granting licenses. Maybe I will just write to the Registrar General Department for beneficial ownership search to be conducted, to get to know the directors and everybody who's behind these companies. Let's see who is there. Once a company is registered, the director is no longer confidential information. It's there. So anybody can have it. If I write to Registrar General, they will provide it. If they don't provide it, I'll go through RTI request to get that information. So that is something we can take a look at and see any name that is interesting there. Maybe some big money company is stationed somewhere funding a lot of people here. All right, so we'll take a number of actions. The only thing we do is that sometimes we are limited by our funding. And so we'll do anybody, and I know government guys, some people don't like this thing. You cannot speak because of where you are. We understand. Please provide us information. We will not disclose our source of information. We will not disclose. This is how every country develops. It's not everybody who can speak. For us as civil society, this is the only thing we have. We can speak and not fear that we will be sacked or be transferred. So if you disclose information to us, we will not come and say, Mr. Asare gave me the information. I won't say that. So please, let's all collaborate, private sector, Now we realize that we need each other more than ever before. And the more and frequent we do it, the better for all of us. So, please, who can give us a closing prayer? Do I have to do something? Dara, has it? Okay. So please, give us a closing prayer. I won't come to you if you're not ready. If you want to, that would be good. Yes? Okay.
Shall we pray? Father, we thank you once again for bringing us to this time. We thank you for successful deliberations on these issues of national importance. It is our prayer that all the next steps that we have documented, you grant us the strength and the resources to go through them successfully, so that at the end we will say it is by your grace that all glory shall be given to you. Amen.
Thank you. Please, one more announcement. I think somebody left his car key. Yes, it's you. Yeah, you would have remembered because you can't move. Yes. Okay. Yes.
I think it's the next action. Case on the. Hello, everyone. I think one last thing, maybe just for your information, we might come back to you to follow up on some of the actions, particularly the suggestions of the legal case and all of that. So if we do, please be responsive and let's act swiftly, because as you can see, we need to act before it's too late. So kindly be on alert. We might contact you very soon for these further actions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bridge can and then Colantimi at the Enco School. Caneno, can be a do sa season say crana intimi merfu. If you say bedru and then so no a year, I will be antiminko Emma. Send our cummy no busumi, ubia tifi. And now say Omobe and Suntiquano, Emma Umutra so my car to me by fire near ma at the court am I who hide. Me co ya, Namiko mim, Nanyame Aya dum atu abu and sem, na boon so barba gia waha, Kata my uncle baby.